Morning, Helen, welcome.
Good morning.
We've got about 10 minutes.
Yep.
We've got your written submission, and it's
Yep.
safe to assume that members have read it.
Yep.
And as I've indicated to Tim, over to you how we use the 10 minutes, but the more of it you spend talking to us, the less we'll have to talk with you.
Okay.
So welcome once again.
Okay, thank you. I've tried to speak to the main thrust of my submission in about 5 minutes, and hopefully that will leave some time for questions.
Good, thank you.
So as you know, my name is Helen Lowe. I'm a private citizen. I'd very much prefer not to be here today, but I am so concerned with the course of events in Christchurch over the past 5 years that I feel I have no choice but to both make a submission and appear in person. As I say in my submission, although you cannot legislate for leadership and vision, I believe these directly connected qualities are what Christchurch, whether one talks in terms of recovery or regeneration, has been absolutely crying out for over the past 5 years. Who has and is publicly articulating a vision of what our city's future could look like? Who is not only actively asking for our views and taking them seriously when we give them, but proactively seeking ways for citizens to be engaged in building that future? What and where is the vision for regeneration enshrined in this bill? In reading through it, I see the retention of a lot of what were meant to be emergency powers and an almost exclusive focus of regeneration in bricks and mortar terms, but no comparable commitment to rebuilding the city's fragmented communities or facilitating a high amenity, livable environment. I believe the bill should place a clear duty on those charged with power under it to actively facilitate a vision for the city's future, one based on meaningful consultation and actively engaging with and seeking to draw together the city as a community. This is the resilience referred to under the definition of regeneration, but almost nowhere else. Although lip service is given to consultation with the community throughout the bill, the language about how the outcomes of consultation will be given effect is of the weakest possible kind. The implication appears to be consult and then ignore unless it suits. And after 5 years of being shut out of any meaningful contribution to the future of our city, I believe it is time for real regeneration in that respect. The amendments I have suggested are intended to ensure consultation is real and taken seriously, not just window dressing. One of the most important areas for such consultation to occur is over the future of the red zone areas. I say consultation advisedly because I accept that there will be a large number of matters for decision makers to consider. Nonetheless, I believe the aspirations of the Christchurch community should be an important part of those considerations and fully taken into account, and that the bill should ensure that this occurs. One outstanding lack of consultation and engagement is the imposition of Order 2014 and the Christchurch Replacement District Plan. The process is rigidly formal and highly legalistic, to an extent that is intimidating for most citizens and very difficult for them to engage in without expert or legal assistance. In addition, the timeframes are so truncated that consultation for the second and third stages has been entirely dispensed with, and the whole process is so rushed and pressured for everyone involved that it is difficult to see how it can possibly deliver high-quality outcomes for Christchurch. As if that were not enough, it is costing a huge amount of money, entirely paid for by the Christchurch ratepayer, despite our having no say at all in the decision to expend that money. So my final point is the need for normalisation. If this bill is truly about regeneration for Christchurch, then I believe it also needs to be about normalisation, acknowledging that the emergency of 5 years ago has passed and it is time now, not in another 5 years, for Christchurch to recalibrate to the rest of the country in terms of governance and the rights of its citizens. I feel very strongly that the most important of these rights is that of access to justice, particularly through rights of merits-based appeal on the matters set out under sections 16 to 43 of the bill, as well as ensuring that plans and policies that have been through a legitimate public process should not be able to be set aside willy-nilly. The right of merits-based appeal is that it enables factual matters to be tested in tribunals such as the Environment Court that are much more accessible for citizens, whereas the High Court is beyond the reach of most people. This is even more important in such a rushed and high-pressure decision-making environment. As I've said in section 15 on page 7 of my submission, the removal of rights such as merits-based appeal that are normal and usual in any other part of the country is an injustice against the Christchurch community. We have already endured the trauma of the earthquakes and their consequences. I do not believe we have done anything to deserve the additional trauma of the sweeping removal of our rights as citizens. Perpetuating this injustice and social trauma for another 5 years is no basis for regeneration, nor does it suggest a true regard for the well-being of the Christchurch community. Now, it may be that you tell yourselves when deliberating on my submission that you can't make an omelette without breaking eggs. But since this committee is the only recourse that this particular egg has on these matters, I would like to say that the earthquakes have done quite enough breaking already. Thank you very much. And that regeneration should, in every respect possible, be about restoring normalcy, not perpetuating the regimes of emergency and crisis. And in terms of the 16 billion, very aware of that, but I'd also like to remind people of the words of Augustine of Hippo almost 2,000 years ago, that charity is no substitute for access to justice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Helen. David's got a question.
Yeah, thank you for that. Can I recommend that you submit on a bill that's out for consultation on proposed changes to the RMA, which your points about appeal rights and loss of justice, I think, are very, very pertinent to that. Can I come back to your belief that some of the emergency planning processes that we've got going under the at present and are proposed under this bill? Are you aware of whether the fast track process that's being headed by Justice Hanson at the moment, whether they're sitting just sequentially as one hearing body, or whether they've got more than one
I
hearing?
believe they've now got, just to get it through, they've got several different tribunals that they're going.
It seems that was probably necessary from the start, really, because one of the feelings of injustice that you're talking about are probably in part because the tribunal, who's just doing what they're told, are so pressured that they need to whack it through in a short period of time that no one really gets much hearing time.
It's just a nightmare. I mean, I got caught up in it because of my property, TC3 still not repaired, over cap, full 9 yards, and I just couldn't believe it the first time I went there. It was just phalanxes of lawyers and experts and people like me sitting down the far end of the room trying to figure out what on earth it was all about and where we could fit in, and all this
How
sort of
long
rigid.
did you get to submit?
You get, you make your evidence, but then you get 10 minutes to speak to whatever you've got. And in the meantime, it's like a free-for-all. There's all this kind of negotiate. You put your submission in and then you think you'll be heard, but then you suddenly get all these emails flying around and you realise all the parties are negotiating frantically, and what you've submitted in is already changing and no one's even spoken to you, The council and the Crown and all the big players are all kind of in there, and individual people, you just get email after email after email with all this material and trying to even keep track. And I've just had so many people say to me, look, I tried to look at it for my house, what it meant, all that stuff, and I just gave up. Didn't understand it, didn't feel confident about participating, and I just think
And feel that your rights could be infringed, but you've got no recourse.
Well, one of them said,
I
have no idea what this means. I have no idea what it means for my property. I don't know whether it means, it's going to be taken away from me or something's going to be built through it or whatever. And I just can't keep track of this. And so people just give up. And I think, I don't see the regeneration in that. And I have no confidence in the outcome of this process is delivering a city that I want to continue to live in it. And maybe I'm the wrong kind of egg for the omelette. Maybe that's the message. But, you know, it's kind of, it really does feel like another trauma on top of everything we've already been through.
Thank you.
Helen, we've used the time allocated to us, so I'm sorry, we're going to need to keep going, because if we to get through today, it needs to be very quick.
Well,
but but in fairness to other submitters who have submitted previously and who are yet to come, we do need to stick to time.
Helen, could you just qualify yourself for the committee in terms of, I know you have worked as a planner, could you provide what you said today to the committee? And could you just, the question is, could you contrast the district plan process with your involvement in regional or other district plan processes under the RMA and the relative benefits of the normal process?
Well, it was a very long time ago, but yes, I can try. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Helen. Appreciate you taking time to be with us this morning, and thanks for your written submission as well, which was very detailed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bruce.